Are you a sensitive empath that falls in love quickly and gets unhealthy attachments to men that turn out to be manipulative, toxic, or have narcissistic traits? You need boundaries, and a specific type called emotional boundaries that will allow you to protect yourself from manipulation, reclaim your personal power, and in doing so, stop attracting these types of men in the first place. Before I learned how to set emotional boundaries, I'd fall for the really convincing act that men with narcissistic traits know how to put on. Then I'd be shocked that after 3 months, when it turned out they were completely disingenuous and were just wasting my time. Now I use these emotional boundaries in my romantic and day-to-day life, and they allow me to see right through emotionally unavailable, immature types and just not even give them the time of day. If this is something you want to learn better emotional boundaries and boundaries in general so that you can break an unhealthy relationship cycle, this is the work that I do with my clients, and I support them in achieving that outcome. There's a link below where you can book a call to speak with me directly so I can best guide you on that journey. So if you've tried boundary setting before and you're just not good with it, you notice that you override your boundary or you ignore it, or it's just kind of clunky, or it really does not feel right at all, learning emotional boundaries is going to be a game changer for you to break unhealthy relationship cycles. So here are some signs that you need to learn how to set emotional boundaries. You keep attracting toxic or disrespectful partners. You often feel overwhelmed or drained or resentful in relationship, and you have difficulty saying no or feel guilty when you do say no. And you find yourself absorbing other people's emotions or taking responsibility for their feelings. And you suppress your own emotions to avoid conflict or just to keep others happy. And you feel more anxious and uncomfortable than not when you're in a relationship. So an emotional boundary is knowing our own capacity and limit in relationships so that we maintain a sense of individuality, emotional safety, and respect. Chances are you're lacking emotional safety and respect in relationships. So setting these will allow you to protect yourself and to not get into another toxic relationship. Now, it's important to point out that boundaries are never about controlling someone else. It is a line that we draw in the sand where our limit ends, and they can either meet you there or not. And knowing when a person chooses not to meet you halfway and to not respect your boundary consistently gives you everything you need to know about how they truly feel, right? If they're not doing that, they're not respecting and caring about you. We can't expect people to meet our boundaries all the time, but if they consistently cross them, ignore them, it really just gives you the information that you need to know about how they truly feel. So to set an emotional boundary, you need to know your emotional limits. What it is that you, specifically for you, need in order to feel safe and respected, and how much emotional energy and time you are willing to invest in a relationship, a conversation, or a situation. That when you ignore your emotional limit, you get activated, you get into fight, flight, or you just get totally drained and you shut down. So an example of an emotional boundary as opposed to a regular boundary, which just might be like, I'm going to no longer date men that are inconsistent with their communication. You are instead going to center your boundary on your emotional experience, right? If I keep feeling a level of anxiety and uncertainty about someone's interest in me because they're inconsistent or avoidant, then I'm not going to date them. I'm just not going to allow myself to have that emotional experience with someone when it's kind of ongoing, right? We might have that at the beginning and that's normal and natural, but if it's just a feature of the relationship, that's a no. So centering and prioritizing your emotional experience is a way to take back your power and control. It means you're not waiting for someone else to change in order for your emotional experience to improve, because you're centering around honoring your emotional experience, but it does require you to be in touch with yourself, your emotions, when you're with someone. So that leads us to why you don't set emotional boundaries, or you might not set boundaries at all. If you've only ever had unhealthy relationships without boundaries, for example, you might have childhood trauma or emotional neglect, and that might have been really subtle or really overt. You probably learned to deny and ignore your emotions, and you didn't see healthy boundaries being modeled. There wasn't a healthy line between where you ended and the next person began. You were caretaking, you were looking after your parents, there was all sorts of this kind of enmeshment behavior going on. And you are placing your connection with them over your connection with yourself. This causes a huge amount of anxiety, low self-worth, and stress when we ignore our emotional experience as adults, right? It served us when we were children, It worked to keep us safe, keep us connected, feeling safe. But now as an adult, it really causes us a lot of stress, and it can feel like you're a shell in relationships, right? It's all about their needs and their preferences and their experience. It's just more important than ours. Now, it's going to feel really weird and clunky to put yourself first, but by leading this way, you're actually teaching others how to treat you. So firstly, we need to set emotional boundaries with ourselves. Boundaries start with an agreement we have with ourselves. So say, for example, you want to prioritize your emotional safety as you get to know someone in the first few months of dating. You're going to set a boundary with yourself to only continue to see them if you feel emotionally safe with them, which means that as you express and open up more of who you are, which you would do in a very natural, slow process when you're dating healthily, they accept you without judgment, without criticism, or any teasing or any derogatory energy. And you feel you can deepen your relationship with them because there is that safety there, and that naturally forms a secure bond. But with someone who's emotionally unavailable, unhealthy, or has narcissistic traits, their wound is going to cause them to keep a level of distance and space between you because they deeply fear intimacy and they prefer control or unhealthy behaviors where that causes you to not feel safe, right? You won't feel accepted as you open up. There's just not going to be emotional safety there. And when you feel unsafe, which you will, this boundary will allow you to recognize this and follow through with ending things, right? You have set an agreement with yourself. You don't feel emotionally safe. That emotion is clearly there in you, and you need to follow through. Now, obviously, boundaries aren't just about the agreement we have with ourselves, it's with others as well. So how do we set emotional boundaries with others? Once you know your own emotional limits, you need to set a boundary according to, what the situation is with this person. So say, for example, you're dating someone, you've just been seeing them for a few months, you're considering a relationship with them, but you're just allowing yourself to go through that slow dating process. It's a good idea to limit your emotional availability according to the newness of the connection, right? Just limit how much time and energy and information you divulge and put in early on, right? Someone you've just met is a complete stranger. So let's just put it out there that opening up completely to them is actually quite an odd and unnatural thing to do. When you think it's totally natural and normal and you've known this person in a past life, you got to believe there's a whole lot of unconscious stuff going on in there, and that is going to bite you in the butt later on. So set this limit with yourself, and it's going to actually show them how you respect your own time and energy. And how they respond to you when you set that limit tells you everything you need to know about them. Are they respectful of your limit? Like, I'm just not going to talk about that right now, like later on maybe. And they're like, cool, that makes sense. You don't have to say everything right now, right? That's a respectful kind of thing. Or do they coerce you into spending more time or giving you more information, right? Like, oh, come on, tell me, right? That kind of coercive information. It might be playful, might be a little bit fun, but actually it's a bit manipulative, and it's showing you that they're crossing your boundaries. Another way to set emotional boundaries with someone else is to communicate your feelings appropriately, right? Expecting a level of emotional safety when you do. And we're not dumping all of our emotions onto them earlier on. No, we're doing this at an appropriate level, right? So say you've had 3, 4, 5, 6 dates or whatever, and you're just kind of seeing them regularly now, and you're having a down day. You express that to them. How do they respond? Are they respectful of that? Are they genuinely interested in caring for you or asking you more about it? Or do they kind of ignore it or downplay it? Or do they even maybe gaslight you and your emotions? And this is a real telling one. If they've done something that's actually caused you some level of upset, and this is, a reasonable thing, and you let them know how their action made you feel, and you let them know how you're feeling after that thing that they did or they said, how do they respond? Do they instantly project onto that, I can't make you feel anything, and they don't take any responsibility, they don't take sender responsibility, are they really kind of like totally blocking any kind of genuine, helpful, respectful, or self-acknowledgement energy, that is a massive, massive red flag. And it's really important to learn to speak up and communicate your emotions earlier on than what you're probably comfortable with without crossing that line of emotional dumping. Now, here's a comprehensive list of emotional boundaries that do get crossed frequently in toxic relationships, which are complete red flags. They invalidate or dismiss your feelings. They manipulate your emotions by trying to excessively control you or influence you. They disrespect your need for space, your individuality, or time alone. Or they rely on you excessively for emotional support and caretaking. Or they're emotionally abusive, yelling, name-calling, stonewalling, and belittling. Or they deny or question your reality or circumstance or feelings, which is known as gaslighting. Or they disrespect your privacy or invade your personal space or items, like checking your phone when they shouldn't. Or they're making threats, ultimatums, or using guilt to control your actions, which is actually emotional blackmail. Or dumping on you emotionally without regard for your capacity or well-being, or using your vulnerabilities and past against you when you're in conflict. Or they're jealous and possessive. They try to isolate you and accuse you of being unfaithful, and they just refuse to take responsibility for their actions or words. Now, if a person does any of these things, you need to run fast in the other direction quickly. It is impossible to cultivate emotional safety and set any kind of emotional boundaries or any boundaries with someone that's engaging in these kinds of dynamics. So go out, set some emotional boundaries with yourself, start practicing them. And if you find you need some more help and support around it, this is the work that I do with my clients inside Heal Your Heart School. So if you want to know more about how to work with me, book a call with me in the link below so I can best guide you on your journey. In the meantime, here are some next step videos for you to watch so you can move one step closer to having a beautiful, healthy relationship to yourself with strong emotional boundaries and all the other things you need. And for now, I will see you in the next video.